Hi there, Cosmic Family. My name is Eliel, and today we have transited the new moon in Libra. Now the moon has moved to Scorpio, where emotions can be removed and aspects that were stagnated of our reality, so we can understand what requires movement and detachment. For other people, this is about intensity, and well, we can focus a lot our energy in things that actually are helping us to move forward. So this thing about emotions being removed could be emphasized because tomorrow, October 22nd, Neptune retrograde comes back to the degree 29 of Pisces. Pisces is its domicile. So this is the last passage that lasts until January 26th of 2026. And as it is a transpersonal planet, and is changing of sign, we could feel this a lot in our individual experience and with much anticipation, days before. In a minute, I'm going to describe these possible manifestations in our daily lives, but first I'm going to try, without really achieving this, to talk about its energy. And I am saying this because we cannot put into words the infinite. The infinite doesn't have a form or a structure, but well, I'm going to try, even though. And Neptune is a planet that rules the waters, represents the subtle worlds, the invisible ones, the mystery in the infinity of universe, symbolizes the intuition as an expression of the voice of the soul wanting to come back to that infinite light from what everything is born, and from which it is emanating what isn't yet. I mean, what responds to a potential state of the energy. That's why the intuitive world, is also part of Neptune in terms of the symbolic things, dreams, imagination. These are ways of channeling the information that comes from other planes. It is just that we don't always know how to interpret these dreams, or our imagination could be distorted by mental illusions or conceptions. So Neptune represents the unity not as a mental concept, as the experience that we can access when we are connecting with light, and we can feel love towards everything. When we can feel that everything is part of oneself. And well, many times this could happen through meditation, could happen through an experience simply. And it usually, this initial state of illumination, it is not something that in which we can stay too long, because later we find ourselves in the processes of the matter with its limitations, and our identifications of the ego are taking us again to separation. So we came here to live, to experiment this illusion of individuality in this plane, so we can approach unity with the divine, but in a conscious way, integrating and accepting everything that the human experience is: anger, pain, sadness, joy, compassion, and well, every color of emotions. There are many. So a great guidance that we have is the inner peace, because when we lack inner peace, we know that there is something that we need to regulate in ourselves, that we need to change, that we need to choose. It is the lack of inner peace, a form of many that the soul has to manifest, that we have to redirect our energy towards a space that can represent growth for us. And this peace is above every emotion. I mean, emotions are temporary, as everything in this experience. And this means that when emotions are, staying for too long, it is because they are being sustained by a perception that we have of reality or a situation. So for many things that I've just said, and because Neptune is a transpersonal energy, integrate the energy, learning to channel it in its most elevated ways, to call it in some way, requires a path. Usually requires a path. And understanding that the non-elevated ways, they are going to be part of this learning of spiritual growth. Therefore, it is also important to understand that to elevate ourselves in consciousness, or to ascend, in order to do that, it is part to access to these subtle worlds of Neptune. but to later descend that light in this plane and to take actions in the matter. But it is very, very common that one of the manifestations of Neptune in shadow could be, wanting to stay in those subtle worlds and disconnecting from this plane. Even losing this sense in this plane, or adopting forms of spirituality that are becoming mechanisms that are making us feel more connected to the spiritual, but actually they are operating as a disassociation of the plane of the matter. And the true phases of elevation, they are really happening and they are really completed when the light is revealed here in this plane. I'm going to put an example. If I access to this information that everything is unity, and I can feel good with that recognition, because it is truly something that we are reminding. We all come from the unity. But this information begins to be integrated when we are practicing that in here, when we are applying that to the things that are occurring, to the people that we are finding in the way. And we start to understand this plane as experiences that are proposing each time a greater consciousness, even if those experiences are not the ones that we want to transit the most. So it is like people talking about the love of God, people that perhaps are belonging to a religion or whatever thing, that is a form of a spiritual connection. But if later they are attacking or insulting you because they don't like how you think, that practice of living in the love of God, it is only sustained by word or in their minds, but there is no truly applicative towards the neighbor, So Neptune could be the ideals in which we could attach to feel connected with something higher, but truly they are traps of the mind, because in order to elevate ourselves spiritually, we cannot attach to anything as a security area. All that we are sustaining right now is going to be temporary. So we can use a book, we can assist to a temple, and we can listen to a person as a way of connecting with spirit. But we cannot reduce or limit the infinite or God, which is the same, to a book, a temple, or a person, because that is idolatry, idolatry to something in the matter, and that pushes us away from true elevation. So descending more to this plane in these days, some people could experiment like confusion, like a lack of sense, and that lack of sense could produce also a lot of sadness or low energy. If these manifestations appear, this is a signal that there are perceptions that need to be dissolved. This is the Neptunian function, in fact. Neptune comes to dissolve our mental barriers so we can focus ourselves in feeling what we need to do, where we need to go, or connecting with intuitive certainties in the present, and not wanting to control much more, what is going to happen with me in 1 month, in 6 months, in 1 year. It is more surrendering to what is. The loss of sense could be linked to wanting to see reality from a logic that is not serving anymore, or resisting the voice of the intuition. Confusion or the feeling of being lost could be an impulse to question ourselves what we do really want right now, to connect with our soul and with our heart, but also could be a mechanism to not deal and to not face what we need to do. Many times we know intuitively which is the decision, but this mechanism of confusion could be a way of not dealing with that thing. Low energy is going to happen in situations where perceptions that are sustained are not actually helping to that inner unity, or where the energy is being invested in places that are not collaborating with that growth anymore. So this passage of Neptune could show areas of life, in the next months, where you could be making renouncements to your inner voice, with quotation marks, to contribute with other people or to sustain certain experiences. But truly, there could be an expectation of those experiences that is being sustained, or a seeking of external validation, which, they are responding to a self-deceit. So sacrifice, which is sacred office, is turning what we do daily in our experience into something sacred. And we can do that when we are listening to ourselves, when we are truly listening to ourselves. And in the activations that we could have, some people could face certain disillusionment, but because that were sustained wasn't in connection with their soul and with their growth. Pisces is a sign of endings, and Neptune, in its last degrees, is going to bring endings. For some people, things or people could simply just dissolve or disappear, which is a quality of Neptune. But in other cases, could be more concrete sins or concrete decisions that they have to make from a responsible place because of the presence of Saturn that is already there, and they are going to be in conjunction even in 2026. So also the passage through here could show where they are, points of energy being dispersed. I am referring that it's being losing in an unlimited way. It is not going to be unlimited because that has a price, and it is not having energy for other areas of our lives that are important, or even that the body can manifest that. So in the end, this is a mastery in the next months, because all of this is part of the process that we have experimenting from 2011 in learning to recognize which things are actually contributions to the things that we are doing that are truly aligned to our soul, and contributions with ourselves and with other people, or things that we are doing for external validation to sustain illusions or expectations that are not real, or to escape from what we need to face in reality, because all of that it isn't going to serve for the next phase. And therefore, if it's not collaborating with our growth, it is not going to do so with the growth of others, with everything that is surrounding us, because we have to remind that the individual revelation of light, it is not only just for oneself, it is for everyone. The entire planet right now is in a process of elevation, but it is also important to not fall in the trap of wanting to save the world, because both the excess of focus in what only brings a benefit for oneself, as believing that we can actually interfere or force in processes of others, are forms of the disconnected ego disguised as the will of growth or spirituality. Thank you, everyone. See you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.